Hello and welcome to the Portmer Podcast, episode 213. I'm your host, Brad. This is my co-host, Eric.
How's it going?
And today, we have a special guest. We've got Mr. Knife Ear Enjoyer, Mr. AOS Lore Man, everything in between. We have PancreasNoWork here.
That's me, a professional General Grievous Glazer and connoisseur of elf feet. How is it going, folks?
That's a pretty good sales pitch right there for why you're on this episode.
I provide what the people want. The people might just be me, but I know what I want.
All right, but for this week, we are going to be doing a Noob's Guide. We haven't done one of these in a while, but for this one, we're going to do Collecting Aeldari.
Sounds good.
All right, Colin, we brought you on here because we know that you're a big fan of all things pointy-eared and hoity-toity and pompous.
That's right. If it's almost any setting and there's an elf involved, I know which side I'm on.
The wrong side of history.
All right. That was a low blow, sir. I snubbed my nose at you, or turned, something like that.
Don't worry, I play Drakari. I have literally nowhere to throw stones from.
Say, hang on now. We have friendly fire over here.
So I guess with that, it's kind of like, let's figure out why you're here and why we should play Aeldari and collect it.
Yeah, so what's the sales pitch for Aeldari? Why would you be interested in starting a collection of them?
Well, if you take a look at their lore, I'm a completely unbiased source, so anything I have to say is objectively correct.
Oh, you'll fit right in with us.
Oh, yes, we're all incredibly unbiased and correct gentlemen here. So I would feel comfortable in saying that Magitech space elves that controlled all of the galaxy for a good 65 million years, that's a pretty good track record to have. If you want to play the winners, I'd say that's a pretty good history of winning. Or wizards. 40k is science fantasy. The better the wizard, the better you're doing, and they're all wizards. Down to the last one. Now, dealing with the evil demon god that wants to eat their soul, everyone has to have something to balance them out, otherwise they just keep winning. Slaanesh is a bit of a pain, but, it's not that big of a deal, I'd say. It's manageable.
It kind of like fully fleshes out the character, right? You can't just always be the top, the best. You have to have some, all right, there's tension going on here. There's Slaanesh. That's kind of a small problem that you gotta overcome.
Yeah, Games Workshop went with the very interesting, unique angle of making elves a dying race.
Yeah, never before seen. And, Superman needs his kryptonite, though. You're right. The Eldar need their Slaanesh to be slightly problematic and instantly eat them when they die. But if you just don't die, that seems like it's a done deal.
Yeah, you're not wrong, actually.
So we have super cool, can do everything, strong psyker elves. It's a good enough sales pitch, but there's also a bunch of different varieties for them.
Yeah, I mean, Aeldari is like one of the older factions in 40k, so there's a few models, units, and lore.
Yeah, I mean, you've got all the Craftworlds, you've got the super wizard one, Ulthway, you've got Bael'tan if you want the elves to be the super racist ones instead of humanity. You got Simhan if you haven't moved on from Sonic the Hedgehog. A Lytalk, and you've got Iandin if you think the best thing about elves is if they're dead.
Wait. What about a Lytalk?
They are rangers.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you remembered that one fact. That's all they've got.
Yeah, that was the bit. Yeah, if the best thing about playing the Eldar is you don't like being around other Eldar, play a Lytalk.
And then we have Illidan, the bad guy from WoW.
Yeah, Iandin.
If you like your elves to be dead, you can do no better.
They also have by far the coolest paint scheme.
Easily. Although my friend did ruin that paint scheme for me.
He's also a Michigan fan?
No, he said it was like the same paint scheme as like our high school mascot's logo, and that just made me upset.
He went to high school at University of Michigan?
How'd you know?
Very impressive.
Damn, your parents are rich.
I guess since we're here talking about the Craftworld options, we'll gloss onto the fact that there's also Harlequins and Ynnari, but we'll go more in depth into what that means later.
And for some universal warnings, if this is your first faction, number one, Warhammer is a long-term hobby. You're not going to be done with this in a year or two. So buckle up, don't rush, take things slow, enjoy the process. is basically the number one lesson here.
And I mean, if you're just getting into it, 11th edition is coming out pretty soon. And so we're going to be doing like a bunch of newer player focused content. So, you know, subscribe, do that stuff so you can come back and watch our cool content in the future.
Eric, that was simultaneously something I'm proud of that you remembered to do a shout out. And also that was so fucking cringe and forced.
It was pretty bad, but I did the thing. So 6 out of 7.
Fucking end you. All right, but we're going to start this process, as we always do, by saying you're buying the Combat Patrol as your first purchase. It's not always the wisest for every faction, but it's something that is incredibly realistic to expect of a new player either way, so we're using that as our starting point. But for Eldar, it's not that bad.
Might even go so far as to say they're kind of eating with the Combat Patrol, with a perhaps potential exception.
Yeah, there's one thing that none of the three of us are a big fan of in this Combat Patrol, and that's 10 Dire Avengers. It's not that they're a terrible unit, it's that it's a very old kit.
So the Combat Patrol has a Spirit Seer, Wraith Blades, Warp Spiders, and then 2 units of 5 Dire Avengers. And yeah, the Dire Avengers are old.
They're a little rough around the edges. If you want some advice, if you don't like the Dire Avengers, hold off on building them for a while. There's kit bash stuff you can look up in Eldar communities for like using Storm Guardians as a base to fix them. People have done other stuff to fix them up in the past. There are ways to make better looking Dire Avengers using that kit as a base. But it's not a great first project ever. If you build them as is, that's fine too.
It's pretty easy to find some Reddit posts on doing kit bashes to, you know, update them and make them fancy. But if you're just getting into the hobby, don't worry about it. The Dire Avengers are old. There's a bunch of mold lines. Kit doesn't build particularly well, but if you build it, it's okay. It'll be something that you use 10 of. Don't worry too much.
You're being a little charitable. At least myself, I think it's more that they just don't look as good now that everyone else in the Eldar had their hell of a glow up. 5 years ago, I think, you know, they wouldn't be the worst thing ever, but now you can tell it's like you are the child that was left behind, weren't you?
True. It's because the rest of the range looks fantastic now.
But with that Combat Patrol, we've got about 500 points.
Yeah, it's 480 points, which honestly just means you would take an enhancement and you're done anyway if you were trying to do a 500 point game. Totally fine. So we don't actually have to buy anything in addition to hit 500 points here, at least currently at the end of 10th edition, beginning of 11th edition.
And I mean, that's going to be the way for like all of the like actual lists that we're talking about here and rough estimates, but things are probably going to stay pretty similar. With the Combat Patrol, you know, the Spirit Seer, the leader, and then you've got 2 units of 5 Dire Avengers, a thing of Warp Spiders, and a thing of Wraith Guards. So you have enough units to like actually start playing the game. Not like Combat Patrol, but like 40k at 500 points.
Yeah, the only thing is we're going to want to expand on this force as we grow from here. So let's talk about where we want to go. I think when we're going to 1K for the first time, we want to make sure we're well-rounded, getting a basic sampler platter of a couple different aspects of the army. So based on what's in the Combat Patrol, where we've got 2 different types of aspect warriors, we've got a couple Wraiths, and we've got a character who likes Wraiths. So going for 1K, let's do 4 kits and a character in addition here. So we'll do a box of Storm Guardians, which is your basic battle line troop. They're also Guardian Defenders, same thing. A Viper, so we've got like a basic light vehicle. A unit of Wind Riders, so we've got a basic unit of bikes. A Wraith Lord, so we have our equivalent of a Dreadnought. Walker vehicle, I guess you could call it. Technically it's a monster, but whatever. And Autarch, whichever way it's supposed to be pronounced, which is like your most basic lore leader.
I think Autarch, but I haven't read ancient Greek books since I was in college, so I have to confess, you know, I'm a little behind on that.
We'll go with Autarch.
They can actually lead a lot of the units, which gives you options. So this is basically rounding out like the rest of the army to like find the different unit types and to figure out what you actually enjoy the most out of it. Because, I mean, the Combat Patrol is very infantry-ish.
Yeah.
You've got different elite infantry to play with in it, though. It is different varieties of them.
But Aeldari have vehicles and that kind of stuff. So, like, let's try out a little bit of those. I think that's a good open up the list at 1K to, you know, actually figuring out what else you're going to do.
The specialization's coming in a little bit. You can be like, hey, I like Aspect Warriors, or maybe I do want to do Wraith Guard, or maybe I do want 5 million jet bikes, he says with contempt.
Yeah, and that actually gets us into post 1K and our big discussion here. So normally, with the last couple of these we've done, they've been for Chaos factions with smaller ranges. And there was an easy flow as we went from 500 points up to 2K that felt like a correct, in air quotes, path to get what you want.
There was some customization of like, here's a couple choices that you get to make here and there. But this is the correct default path that'll get you towards a 2K list. But Aeldari has a lot more range.
Yeah, this is the largest range we've covered in this series so far. Spoiler, Space Marine will be coming.
Which is a good thing, but it does complicate the matters a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting time to talk about, like, you can at this point start feeling out which direction you want to go and start following your heart, and it should work out okay. There is also the fact that you're probably going to be several months to a year into collecting, depending, or maybe this is literally your first shopping cart, who knows. So it's possible there's a new combo box. Eldar are very popular as far as getting combo boxes go. Like, they've had, just since like 8th edition now, they've had something like over a dozen of them.
And they haven't all been like the exact same. There's been a pretty good option of like the different focuses, the different like prongs of the army that it's focusing on at any given time.
As we're recording this right now, for example, there are temporary boxes for Corsairs, 2 different ones. This will not be the case 6 months after this episode airs, but I'm sure there will be a new Elves vs. Somebody box within the next year, like there always is.
Yeah, I expect there to be another Battle Force or similar, whatever it is, at the winter holidays time for an Aeldari one to show up around that time.
It's ironic you say that because it's like a famous joke that they haven't gotten one of that exact box in like a decade.
Well, I mean, the expectation is that that's changing with Aspect Warriors and Phoenix Lords.
Or perhaps the Cope, if you are a little bit less confident.
Fine, okay.
It's just a weird one to bring up the example that does not exist.
It will, though. It will. Okay?
I want it to exist. I'm on your side. I'm just afraid.
It's not cope. It'll happen.
The monkey's paw curls. It's all bowling ball pins.
I'm in. That would be a great box. My brother asked for that one. Deal. We're good with getting him that one. I like Wraiths.
So, yeah, these limited, available, well, stock last combo boxes do come up pretty often. And there's a caveat for newer collectors to 40K. These combo boxes are good because they're a discount. Don't go searching for an old one that's going to be at like scalper price, twice as expensive. Then it's no longer a deal.
Yeah, combo boxes are only good if they're a discount. Otherwise, you could just buy the models piecemeal for cheaper and make any combo box you desire if you're willing to pay the standard price.
If you buy the Eldritch Omens Eldar half for the full price of Eldritch Omens, I'm very sorry, but you have been scammed.
Which it sounds obvious when we bring it up like that, but that's not always the case for like every other hobby out there. Like sometimes there are like, oh, this was only available on that particular combo. That's pretty rare for 40K, especially these intro boxes. So don't get scammed there. Just take a look at what's currently available and what's actually at discount kind of stuff.
Don't be like me and trust a person in the friend group who says he's totally giving you these cool old minis at a reasonable price that are the old metal Wraith Guard more expensive than the new plastic Wraith Guard. Don't be me.
That's cruel.
That is pretty brutal.
All right, so getting back on topic for trying to get to 1.5K here. The world is our oyster. I'm going to say a couple of the last things we can pick up that are very generic is we could get a Wave Serpent and a Fire Prism. So we've got our dedicated transport and an example tank, and then a Farseer, which is our basic Psyker caster, like one of the core identities of the army. And that gets us up to like in current points, like 1,300 points.
With a decent spread of like different options throughout the army.
Exactly. And then with the last 200 or so points, I'm going to say my advice is either pick up your favorite Phoenix Lord and their matching Aspect Warriors, or pick up an Avatar of Cain. It's a cool model. Or pick up another unit of Wraiths and a Wraith Lord again. So you've got more of that if you're into the Wraith part of the army. This is where you can start really making the army your own and start going in a direction. Now that you've got a core pool of like basic units to work with, now we can start going flavor roots.
I think this is also the point where realistically you should take a moment and like actually evaluate if you're actually enjoying the faction. Part of that is figuring out like what parts of the army you like the most so that you can, focus more into that. But also try not to get too stuck in the sunk cost stuff of like, if you actually don't like this faction, don't go all the way to 2K and then be like, wow, I hate 40K. This is dumb. I hate everything about it. When like this is the point where you really understand, all right, I've tried a lot of these models. There isn't really anything that pulls me. There's nothing that's really exciting. I kind of don't like it.
There's nothing wrong if you're playing against your friends and you go, damn, I kind of like my buddy's Space Marines more play-wise.
Yeah.
You can choose to stop playing this faction. And again, there's ways to get rid of them on the secondary market. We've talked about that on previous episodes. There's all sorts of ways to not have to deal with the sunk cost of what you've gotten and go in different directions. I think we're all for not going into sunk cost fallacy with any faction when you're starting out.
Don't keep digging a hole because you feel obligated to based on what you already have.
Yes. And just because you like something in the lore doesn't mean you're going to enjoy it in gameplay.
Very true.
But that said, we're going to keep going like, this is something you like. You're a huge fan of getting called names and being told how terribly overpowered your Eldar are and how they break all the rules and it's not fair. And you've gotten errated 6 times this edition now.
And you've had to deal with 500 Black Templars fans responding to your tweets about your army. So now that you're at 1,500 points too, it could be a good idea to drop down to around 1,000 and figure out what you like, which especially works well with the Eldar because every part of their army has a role. If you like aspect warriors, within that you can specialize within, I want to run a lot of Dire Avengers. If you could stomach the sculpts, or you can go, I would like to run fire dragons and make Imperial Knights players cry. Or I like the models and a lot of them, but the other guys are a bit too fragile. You can, all right, I'm going to run a couple 1K sized games, mostly with the Wraiths. Get a little bit of more staying power and heavier hitting in at the cost of a bit of the speed the rest of the army has. There's a lot of options you have to kind of pursue.
Yeah, and I think 1K is pretty representative of what a 2K list can do. Like 500 points gives you, okay, this is still 40K, but it's not quite the same.
500 is a rough point for playing 40K. It tends to be like a learner game, whereas at 1K, it starts to feel like proper 40K. You have to be careful because it's really easy to make the game unbalanced at 1K, but it's where you can start feeling out your faction and going, all right, I am a huge fan of Wraiths. Or, all right, turns out I'm a treadhead. Let's go into a bunch of vehicles.
Right. I mean, there definitely are lists that, like, if you're always just playing 1K, you can create unfun lists. But I think it's enough that, like, you can play the tanks and, some of those without it being too unfun and, like, actually get a feel for 40K itself as a whole game. And, like, it lets you figure out which parts of the army you're going to, like, actually want to pursue more, which leads us into, all right, what you enjoy. You want to buy more of those and, like, actually get a 2K list that you're going to have, like, okay, we're playing the full game, as it were.
So moving into 2K, obviously because Eldar's range is huge, we can go a ton of different ways. You can keep going variety route. Like, we could keep getting new stuff that we haven't touched yet. And, like, true variety, every single unit we've got is different in the final 2K list. Bunch of different aspect warriors. We haven't even touched on rangers yet. You could get into doing corsairs maybe, or liking harlequins and going that route. There's a lot you could do variety wise here.
So let's just kind of jump into an example. So Colin, you're at the 1,500 points that we've got here. What's the most interesting part of the army that you want to, like, flesh out?
For me, I do start going Wraiths. I like the Wraiths, Wraith Guard, Wraith Blades, so I would start looking at Wraiths and maybe some transports to get them around.
Okay, so here's an example, 2,000 points. We take that core 1,300-ish. We grab the extra set of Wraith Blades and another Wraith Lord to fill it out to 1,500. And then we end up with a final 2K that is our Autarch, our Farseer, our Spirit Seer, a unit of Guardian Defenders, the 10 Dire Avengers, 5 Warp Spiders, and then we've got 10 Wraith Blades, 10 Wraith Guard, 2 Wraith Lords, 3 Wind Riders still, our Fire Prism, our Viper, and then a pair of Wave Serpents so we can move around some of our Wraith Blades and a Spirit Seer or whatever.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, more focused expansions on the part of the list that you enjoy. I feel like I'm a sucker and would want more Spirit Seers, but
again, yeah, you could do that too. Like, there's no reason we have to stop at 2K. I can throw another Spirit Seer on top and we have a pair of Spirit Seers and
drop down a Dire Avenger group.
Yeah, you could drop down all the Dire Avengers and go with the second Spirit Seer and maybe pick up a Wraith Lord or something. Maybe you have to drop another unit, whatever. The point is, like, we're at the point now where you just piecemeal can get a new kit, build your new kit, paint it up, and start playing with that. This allows you, again, to at 1K games or at 1.5K games as well, start going super heavily into only the Wraiths, or like figure out where your line is of like, when my list is about half Wraiths, that's when I feel like it has the best balance of it still feels Wraith heavy, yet I still feel like I can do stuff with less elite units, and you can use those to explore while you're building up to start playing 2K games regularly.
I think that works pretty well. There's also like other prongs, focuses that you could have done. So like instead of focusing on the Wraith part, when you were at 1500 and choosing, you could do some more of the Aspect Warrior, Phoenix Lord stuff, and just like kind of keep going all in on that Aspect Warrior type list. You can grab Lycus, Azerman, Fugan, and then 2 units of Fire Dragons, just because like I'm a sucker for going all in with a, Fugan and full group of 10 Fire Dragons. Just cool for me.
A giant Melta squad is fun.
Yeah, and then grab a Wave Serpent so that you can actually move things around enough. And in this potential list, it's like 1985 points, thereabouts. And then again, you can just keep, focusing more and more. You can get more Aspect Warriors, and you can drop some of the like less focused parts. Particularly at this point, you would probably not want Wraiths as much.
Yeah, this is where we get into, now you're to the point where you start making your collection your own, from the sampler platter starter into what you think you like. Now that you have the Wraith core you like, but you're like, damn, I do want to do an Aspect Warrior list. Nothing stops you from now picking up those in addition. And now you have the option of both. But I think now that we're at 2K, this is where a lot of people are going to ask about the fact that Aeldari has a lot of soup abilities. We've got the Ynnari, we've got Corsairs, we've got Harlequins, and we should have the discussion for those interested in these parts of the army. Hey, can I start with this? Can I make this my entire collection? Should I splash this in later? And the answer isn't really clean. So let's have this discussion. We're recording this at the very end of 10th edition, weeks until 11th. The expectation right now is the detachments that exist in 10th edition, there are 12 for Aeldari. 5 of those 12 are for either Corsairs, Ynnari, or Harlequins. The other 7 being for like the main Asuryani portion of the army, which is Craftworld Eldar's legally distinct term.
It's actually not that many detachments given how many units are actually in Aeldari and like the differences that go on.
Oh, we'll be having the Space Marine detachment count talk in a different episode soon. But yeah, the point is in 11th edition, these attachments are getting rebalanced to cost a number of points that you'll have access to in a game. So at 2K, you'll have 3 points, and I expect a lot of these Ynnari, Corsair, Harlequin detachments will be 1 to 2 point detachments, making it easier for you to soup in the part you like of either Corsairs or Harlequins and make sure that everyone in your army gets access to rules that help those units. This is one of the good changes I like with what 11th is looking to do with the detachments. We don't have details yet. We only have the vague examples they've shown. But I expect, again, to have to warn you that just because that's how it's going to work for the immediate future does not mean this is how it will work 2 years from now. Soup and Eldar both are prime examples of the fact that 40K is a living game. The rules for both of these things have changed a lot in the last 5-6 years and will change a lot again in the next 5 or 6 years. If you're getting into Eldar wanting to soup them with other Eldar, just know that things will change. Sometimes it will be very difficult, sometimes it will be very easy, sometimes it will be good, sometimes it will be bad. Just know that going in. If you're aware of that, then you'll be fine.
So if I was looking to mix and match things with everything in the Eldar range, go to the web store and see all they have. What is the distribution between just pure Craftworld and all of the rest of the soup that they've thrown in here?
I don't have the exact number for Craftworld data sheets, but it's a lot. It's 50 plus, I'm sure.
But for like Corsairs, there's only a couple named characters and then the infantry units.
Few Harlequins too.
Yeah, so Corsairs, you have 2 named characters, 3 infantry units, and then an alt build of the Viper. Harlequins, they actually have a decent little range. It's 1 epic hero, 3 generic characters, an infantry, a mounted unit, a transport, and then a light tank that's the transport's alt build. Ynnari have the weirdest thing of they are just 3 named characters, but it gives you access to 8 basic data sheets from Drukhari's range because it's supposed to be showing the Ynnari cult of death combining Drukhari and Asuryani under one banner.
So, I mean, that does bring up the thing of like what's on the GW website for Aeldari is kind of confusing because of Ynnari. It adds a bunch which...
Yeah, it's probably part of the reason you're at this episode.
Yeah, it is actually kind of confusing. One of those, like, the Drukhari that are shown there are only because Ynnari lets you take them kind of thing, which, again, brings us back to, like, do you start here? And I think the answer is generally no.
Yeah, so this is where it gets real awkward of, like, technically, meta-wise right now. Corsairs just got all of these new data sheets. They're all pretty undercosted compared to the rest of the range. So if you were to look at, like, current meta lists for Eldar, it's going to be a bunch of Corsair units. Don't expect that to be the case in 3 months.
Don't buy based on meta. Don't buy the most powerful units.
It will change before you have them glued together in most cases.
And this is just like general advice in 40k. Buy the units that look cool. I mean, general like play style, like, okay, yeah, if you like tanks, you can buy a cool looking tank kind of thing. But like, don't buy the best one because it's meta. Buy it because you think it looks cool and is cool in lore or whatever reason outside of just it has the lowest points cost for the amount of damage it can output, because that'll change.
Build a healthy collection that you like playing is basically the number one thing to take away from this series every time. Is we have to get you to a point where you realize what you like and then build towards it. Sometimes it will be very good. Other times it will be an uphill battle. Hopefully it will be balanced more often than not. The game has improved balance-wise a lot, to the point where the complaints of today balance-wise are a joke compared to how bad the complaints were even like 9 years ago.
It's just one of those things that there are ups and downs for meta, balance, and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's not that bad overall. You can't do too much wrong.
I mean, you say that, but Colin, you were interested in the Wraith stuff. There's a reason we didn't bring up the Wraith Knight.
Oof. So, the Wraith Knight should, I will stake my name on saying 90% of the time, do not buy that early on. Don't even buy that necessarily in the middle as you're collecting, because that is a big, massive brick of a model that is...
a balancing nightmare.
Yes. It has been all over the place. The history of Wraith Knight's balance is funny to read about, and aside from that, if you get it early on, say right after you get the combat patrol, the Wraith Knight is making up most of the next filling out 1,000-point army you get.
Yeah, you don't want a model to be a quarter of what you own early on. We talked about this with the Demon Primarchs in the last 2 episodes of this series. You probably want to get to the point where you could play a 2,000-point game without access to this model. Then if you want to buy it as a toy, it's fine. And sometimes you will play it, you'll have fun with it, or you won't, and you have the option to not field it as well then.
Yeah.
When it's a chunk of what you have that you're going to be forced to play, it can be real awkward and be a sour taste in your mouth.
It also brings up you're playing against someone else and they need to also enjoy the game or they won't come back and play with you kind of thing. And if you keep putting a Wraith Knight in your list at 1k points, they're going to stop playing with you.
Yep. And that's also why we didn't start adding tanks to our list till the 1.5k, because then it becomes, all right, at 1k we can try one with tanks, we can try one without it. We kept it to light vehicle before then.
Yeah, you're not like locked into an unfun matchup.
Yes.
The person who brings a knight to a 1,000-point game, there are 2 paths ahead of you. It is either the opponent passes the DPS check and you look stupid, or you look like an asshole because you brought a 400-point model brick to the friendly 1k point match.
As much as it looks cool, and at some point down, the future of your collecting, it can be fun to do that once or twice of just like everybody's on board of like you and your opponent agreed, all right, we're going to do something dumb. But if it's your only option in the 1k list, it's not quite as fun. Even at 2k, a 430, a 450 point model is such a huge chunk of your list. If you can't change it out, that like the games just become kind of focused around it. So yeah, it is one of those, don't get the Wraith Knight early, figure out like you have a 2k list, and then you can get the toy that's really cool looking, and you can take all the time you want to make it as awesome looking as possible. Real centerpiece.
It can bring an army together and be a great centerpiece, a great, like, this is my standout, this is the guy who's leading the charge. But if you get it too early, that sunk cost fallacy might hit you harder than it otherwise would have, especially if you stop having fun with the big dumb brick.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a shout out to the plane as well in this little section here.
Eric's love of planes and how bad they are in 40k.
Yeah, it's just Games Workshop doesn't understand aircraft, so it's always gonna be either unplayable or like unfun in like, oh, they just didn't balance it right and the rules don't make sense and it's just really good. I do think that the Crimson Hunter or whatever the alternate build is,
The Hemlock.
I think it's really cool. It's an awesome model. I love that model. I would still put it in like, this is the beyond 2K. This is your fun thing that you'll bring in every once in a while, just because Games Workshop isn't particularly good at balancing aircraft. So it's going to be one way or the other of being really bad or just like rules cheating kind of in a way. So that's another one to keep an eye on.
They bring an aircraft to a game where everyone is involved, like aware, yes, aircraft we're going to maybe both bring some aircraft and have fun.
Yeah.
Or equally not have fun, depending on the edition and what their state is.
Yeah. Maybe 11th edition is going to fix all rules are going to be perfect and balanced around aircraft. So they're just great, but like not overpowered or anything. Looking at the past editions, I don't think that's really going to happen. So just, that's one of those I wouldn't recommend in the first initial 2K list that you're trying to put together in your collection. Afterwards, though, really cool. I loved playing. And then, there's always just, you can keep getting more of the rest of the army, and especially with Aeldari, there's so many units that like you can end up with like 6K and just one time field Wraiths, the other time field aspect warriors, another time field all bikes. There's a lot of potential that you can just keep going, but take it slow. That's my recommendation there. Don't be like Brad. Don't buy everything all at once.
Don't be like me. And if you are like me, you did it to yourself and you have no one to blame but you.
That is a look in the mirror you will need to have, I promise you.
Yeah.
Don't look in the mirror if you look like me.
That poor mirror.
Never saw it coming. Shattered.
To shreds, you say.
Yeah. So, at that point, it's one of those, like, you kind of have your collection. Honestly, you start thinking about, like, what's next. There's always going to be new units that come out. GW's going to make more stuff. Can also look at new factions. There's a tie-in with Ynnari. Just scooch right over into Drukhari as well.
You got 8 units worth of stuff to look at there, which is a pretty good chunk of the Drukhari range anyway, so you'd have a solid baseline for that army place, like, if you soup it.
Well, it is now.
That'll change. It'll be better. It'll be better.
The year of the Drukhari is just around the corner, and I will be saying that until it happens.
I said the last 3 years.
Year 4, baby.
It's not copium, it's going to happen. But yeah, there's also the potential that you can just go into like a completely different, go into chaos, go into collecting space marines or whatever. Like really, you can do whatever you want once you've got your core build together for, Aeldari 2K list.
I don't know, you've got a lot of beautiful sculpts to look forward to, especially after that refresh. Even the Rangers, those Rangers on the back of the bike just reminds me of Return of the Jedi in the best way possible.
Oh yeah, the Shroud Runners.
Yeah, I love those things, which is funny because I'm not usually too good with running Rangers, but if I run Shroud Runners, it's just a fun unit. There's a lot of fun to be had. If you can think of a play style, the Eldar have it.
Yeah, that's one of the big wins for Eldar. Because they're just the elite, awesome at everything elf, they've got access to basically everything.
I'd even say they somehow managed to avoid it having like a bloated roster, because everything has its role, it does its role well, and you're spoiled for choice. You're not confused as to what am I even looking at with these 500 guys. You have pretty clear paths on where to go if you like X play style, which is wonderful to see.
Absolutely. But I think that's about it for this topic.
Yeah, I will say this is the first of a few of these we have planned for the next few months. So if you have things that you wish we had covered in this topic, please leave comments about it and we'll try to get it so that when we cover the next couple, spoilers, it's going to be Orcs and Space Marines, we can improve those to help out new players who have the questions. Also, if you have questions about Eldar specifically, ask them in the comments. I am sure that us and a bunch of other commenters can help you out and give advice on the topic. There is a lot of very passionate Eldar fans. I can tell you that because they're in the comments every time I bash them in an episode for a joke.
Glory to the Craftworlds.
And thank you, Colin, for joining us on this episode. I guess before we actually leave, do you want to give a shout out where they can find you?
You can find me at PancreasNoWork for lore and very, very sometimes tabletop when I try and do math. And Pancreas still no work for when I do video games.
All right. Thank you for joining us.
Of course, my pleasure.
And I'm sure we'll have you on again for the next time we cover AOS lore because we're going to need the help.
A little bit.
I'm more than happy to provide. Such is the power of Nagash.
He said the line, Bart.
Yeah.
The only thing missing is no one called you princess.
No, well, thank you for throwing it back in there. I almost had fun here, but you just had to do that, didn't you, huh?
And on that note, we're out of here.
Sounds good.